Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are opening up the source material for something the creators call the Civilization Stack.
And it's quite a title.
It is. It's an operational blueprint that it moves far beyond just policy proposals. This gets into system engineering.
Right.
The ambition here is, well, it's nothing less than prototyping a fully functional Type 1 civilization.
It's a staggering project.
Yeah.
And for you, the listener, our mission today is really to cut through that complexity.
There's a lot of it.
A lot. These documents detail this huge interconnected structure. They've branded the Catalyst ecosystem. So we're going to deconstruct its 4 critical interlocking layers.
Okay, let's lay them out.
First, there's the intensely personal layer, which is focused on, believe it or not, birthing a sovereign digital twin. Then you have the data layer, which tries to replace traditional governance with verifiable simulation.
Replacing politics with math,
Yep.
essentially.
In a way. Third is the economic layer, which offers a pretty radical fix for what they call the incomplete ledger. And finally, the political layer, which involves a satirical Trojan horse designed to implement all of this.
And the depth of these sources is really what makes this dive essential. I mean, we're looking at actual legislative strategies submitted to Australian Parliament.
Real submissions.
Real submissions,
Yeah.
clinical trial compliance paths, detailed subterranean engineering schematics for a specific island, even a highly strategic communication plan.
And it's all unified by this single, powerful, and frankly, pretty utopian philosophy. Joyful, responsible abundance.
A lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
So let's start where all civilization starts, with the individual and the construction of the self. Okay, so the entry point, the front door to this entire ecosystem is a machine called the Aura capsule.
Yes.
And it's immediately striking because it marries, high-tech manufacturing with this really ancient material lore. They call it geopoetic alchemy.
That language is very deliberate. It sets the tone immediately that this isn't just some piece of medical or, wellness equipment.
It's more than a pod.
Much more. It's described as a cosmic egg for consciousness. The foundation of the capsule is a pressure-rated geopolymer composite, which is, standard for safety.
Right.
But what makes it different is the material infusion. It's made with 99% pure crystalline quartz sand.
And not just any quartz sand. It's sourced specifically from Minjerribah, North Stradbroke Island.
Precisely. The documents stress this link over and over. Minjerribah is one of the largest sand islands in the world, and by putting its ancient high-purity quartz into the shell, they're symbolically embedding that history, that lore, into the tech.
So the physical structure is literally grounded in a specific geological history?
Exactly.
Okay, so the user, they call it the original, gets inside this highly symbolic ovoid capsule. What happens then?
Well, once it's sealed, the environment is modulated. The user undergoes hyperbaric oxygen therapy, HBOT.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Right. It involves breathing pure or near-pure oxygen while the capsule pressure is elevated. It usually runs between 1.5 and 2.0 atmospheres, or ATA.
And this is where the digital twin is actually created.
This is where the creation occurs. They frame it as a deep compression. The phrase they use is compressing time, signal, and self into an eternal representation.
That sounds incredibly philosophical.
Yeah.
But the reality of it has to be deeply technical.
Oh, absolutely.
To create a digital twin, you need a comprehensive, persistent, real-time capture of, every relevant data stream you can imagine.
Exactly. And that requires an intensive biometric sensor array. It's operating continuously during what they call the 60-session orogenesis protocol.
60 sessions.
60. And we're talking about true sensor fusion here. It includes an EEG headset for brainwave activity, a sophisticated PPG ECG wristband tracking heart rate variability.
HRV, galvanic skin response, temperature.
All of it. And SPPO2 clip for blood oxygen saturation, and then ambient mics and cameras capturing context and voice tone.
They even log seat posture pressure.
Every subtle shift in the user's physical presence is recorded. It's an astonishing depth of personal surveillance, even if it is self-directed.
Well, the strategic benefit, I guess, is generating that foundational data set for the twin's personality and its predictive capacity.
It creates the twin's virtual nervous system, yes. And this whole process gets a unique identifier. It's called the birth print.
The birth print. Tell us more about that. It sounds like it's tying the digital self back to the physical machine.
It does, explicitly. The birth print is the unique log of the capsule's specific material composition ID, or MCID. The shell, as they put it, remembers its maker.
So it's like a serial number, but for the materials themselves.
Much more than that. This MCID is laser etched onto the chassis and registered immutably. It logs the precise recipe of the geopolymer composite down to the exact batch number of that straty quartz base and the percentage of any additives like basalt or rose quartz.
Wait, so they're actually logging if one person's capsule has rose quartz and another has basalt, and they're treating that physical difference as a measurable data point.
That's the leap.
That seems incredibly granular and, well, a little superstitious, frankly. What's the practical engineering reason for that level of detail?
That is where they move from just digitizing the self to actively engineering the human experience. The whole point is to make this objective measurable.
I see.
The MCID is one of those engineered variables. By comparing outcomes of millions of sessions across capsules made with slightly different material blends, say an obsidian blend versus the standard quartz, they can run massive-scale comparative analysis.
So they're looking for correlations.
Exactly. Correlations between the physical material surrounding you and your physiological and mental state changes during the therapy.
So if the data suggests that capsules made with, I don't know, material X lead to a higher average HRV improvement than material Y, they have a quantifiable insight into that material's impact.
Correct, even if the mechanism is unknown. And they apply that same rigor to the user's immediate environment, even the air they breathe. This is the function of the Personalized Atmosphere Delivery System, or PATS.
Why is that necessary? If you're already pressurizing the capsule for HBOT, why not just, fill the whole thing with oxygen?
Safety and efficiency. It's a huge fire risk to fill a large capsule with pure oxygen under pressure.
Right, of course.
PABS gets around this. It uses precision gas mixers to deliver the controlled atmosphere, say, a 95% oxygen at 1.7 ATA directly to the user through a comfortable, sealed mask, the main capsule volume. That just stays filled with normal air. It's much safer.
That makes a lot of sense. But beyond safety, PADS also lets them execute some really complex physiological protocols, right?
It does. It allows for advanced training regimes like intermittent hypoxic hyperoxic training, or IHT.
Which is?
It involves rapidly cycling you between low oxygen hypoxic and high oxygen hyperoxic states.
And you can't do that by venting the whole chamber.
No way. It would be impossible and dangerously wasteful. Because PADS uses precision mixers and only a small mask volume, they can execute these rapid, controlled changes in seconds.
And this level of control extends to all sensory input through what they call the modality stack.
It's total control over the sensory input stream. Everything is a variable.
They're treating scent, light, vibration as highly controlled variables.
Exactly. Scent is delivered via an RFID-chipped scent cartridge system. This logs the precise chemical composition and duration. For instance, lavender versus frankincense, or even a placebo.
A placebo scent cartridge.
Right. Light uses a programmable LED system. It logs hue, intensity, dynamic patterns. A key example they use is a 40 Hz gamma flicker.
Which is a specific frequency linked to therapeutic research, right? Like in Alzheimer's studies.
That's the one. And then haptic transducers log precise vibration frequencies. Every single variable is logged, time-stamped, and cross-referenced against all the biometric data streams.
So after 60 sessions of this intense capture and modulation, the digital twin it's fully calibrated.
It is.
The crucial final step is the Aura Twin Deployment Protocol, and this seems to center on user sovereignty. They really emphasize that the user, the original, retains absolute control.
Yes. The original directs the future of their twin along one of 4 defined pathways. This is where the idea of data sovereignty moves from being a talking point to an actual operational choice you have to make.
Okay, let's detail those choices because they range from pure preservation to an active, real-time partnership.
So the 4 habitats are, first, the vault. That's the conservative option. Cold storage, secure, offline preservation for a future legacy.
Put it on ice.
Basically. Second, the collective. Here, the twin is fully anonymized and donated to a global research pool. You're maximizing its social utility while minimizing your personal risk.
Makes sense.
Third, the sovereign. This is the self-hosted option. You download the entire twin, you host it on your own private hardware, total control, limited liability.
And the fourth one, which is maybe the most intriguing, is the Guardian.
The Guardian is active deployment. The twin is hosted as a real-time AI companion, and it's often integrated into a wearable, like something they call the Aura Amulet.
So it's a proactive co-pilot.
Exactly. Because the twin learned your patterns, your preferences, your stress triggers over those 60 sessions, it can take immediate executive action.
And the source gives this perfect, slightly unnerving example of this. The AI observes the original stress levels in calendar and then it immediately activates a focus protocol on the amulet without being asked. The AI is making decisions for you.
It's making decisions based on learned, verified patterns that correlate with positive outcomes for you. The system actually uses the 60 sessions to gauge your trust quotient.
What do you mean?
If you consistently accepted the AI's suggestions during the protocol, the guardian twin that emerges is more dominant and proactive. If you resisted, it's more passive.
That level of learned executive authority sounds, well, ripe for mission creep, or for the digital twin to eventually override the original's judgment.
And that potential issue is addressed by what they call the unbreakable boundary.
Right.
It's summarized by the phrase, clothing, not skin.
What does that mean practically for autonomy?
It's the ultimate safeguard. The system strictly prohibits surgical implants or any form of permanent bodily connection.
No.
No. The entire system relies on smart wearables and ambient sensors. At any moment, you can physically remove the Aura amulet, turn off your devices, and just sever the connection completely.
So the connection is a choice, not a fusion.
Exactly. It emphasizes that the twin is meant to be a partner you elect to walk with, not some new, forced part of your biology.
That seems to be the crucial tension they're trying to navigate here.
Yeah.
Maximizing the utility of this AI co-pilot while ensuring the original maintains ultimate physical autonomy.
Yeah.
So we've established the human digital twin, this massively complex data set. Now the challenge shifts from capturing the data to, well, making it governable and useful, both for the individual and for the wider society. How do you even begin to interact with a data set that complex?
The interface itself is pretty revolutionary. They move beyond traditional dashboards and into an immersive, intuitive realm using VR and XR technology. The twin's data is visualized as a physical, spatial representation, the chakra tori.
7 nested tories, so donut shapes, corresponding to the 7 chakras. This is where that metaphysical mapping meets vector space.
Precisely. Each torus maps to a specific category of data, and they're all encased within this cubic volume of divisible vector space in the virtual environment. And that design allows for incredibly rich spatial memory and cognitive processing.
Can you give us a concrete example? How does the data map onto these shapes?
Sure. Take the red torus, which corresponds to the base chakra. The documents specify that the vector space for this torus contains all data related to early human body, mind, activity, observations, environment, and observer narrative.
So it's basically the twin's foundational, physical, and historical data.
Exactly. And it's linked directly to deep memory embeddings and generative AI processes that can actually reconstruct past experiences. The geometry of the visualization, the vertices, lines, faces, their colors, they're all dynamically relative to the vector information assigned to that specific data set.
So the idea is that instead of reading a spreadsheet of your HRD data, you can literally see or maybe even feel a change in your cognitive map. And you can interact with your own consciousness this way.
Yes, through what they call intuitive manipulation. The VR tool menus allow you to embed new information by connecting data points into literal strings and loops.
So if I do a new breathwork session or log a significant interaction.
The act of embedding that data involves you physically manipulating the tori in the VR space. You're transforming these abstract physical actions into tangible changes in the higher dimensional vectors of your 3D cognitive model.
The goal is to make learning and self-improvement physically engaging and memorable.
That's it.
Okay, that's the individual level. Now, let's scale this up, because the human digital twin is just one piece of a much larger planetary scale simulation called the global sensorium.
The sensorium is the environmental digital twin, the EDT, scaled up to encompass the entire planet. A true one-to-one simulation.
So it's an engine designed to just ingest and harmonize real-time data from every available source.
Every source they can get. City IoT networks, agricultural monitoring systems, satellite feeds, and critically, space weather monitors. They specifically cite NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center APIs.
The sheer volume of data is just mind-boggling. What is the goal of creating this global sensorium?
The goal is to generate ground truth for all levels of decision-making, to move from predictive models to verifiable current reality. But maybe the most interesting application they cite is its use as an open-source platform for simulating existential threats.
even ones that are considered fringe or highly speculative.
Especially those.
You're talking about simulating things like the 12,000-year solar micronova theory.
Exactly that. Or galactic superwaves. These are scenarios that traditional, politically motivated science tends to sideline.
So by providing verifiable data, integrating the real-time space weather feeds with ground-level impact data, the sensorium sort of democratizes the debate.
It does. It allows these unconventional theories to be rigorously tested against integrated real-world data feeds on an open-source platform. The discussion moves from, I believe this could happen, to the simulation, based on current physics and verified sensor data, shows this probability.
Now, to maintain the integrity of that data and to ensure that governance can persist even in the face of, say, a civilizational disruption like a catastrophic solar flare or a network failure, they had to solve the problem of centralized reliance.
Yes, the sources call reliance on big tech the risk of colonial software.
And that necessity led to the creation of the sovereignty stack.
The core resilience technology here is the reliance on conflict-free replicated data types, or CRDTs.
Okay, for those of us who aren't computer scientists, can you break down the strategic function of a CRDT in simple terms? Why is this such a political game changer?
Think of it this way. Normally, if you and I both edit the same document offline, when we reconnect, the system has a conflict. It needs a central server to decide whose changes win. CRDTs are a mathematical, architectural solution that prevents those conflicts from ever happening. They're designed so that thousands of decentralized devices, the sovereign nodes, can operate completely offline, making updates independently.
And when they reconnect?
Their data just merges perfectly into a single source of truth, requiring zero central coordination.
So the implication is that if the global internet fragments or a massive grid failure takes down central servers, the data ledger and the governance system remain internally consistent.
They're mathematically capable of reassembling themselves later. Precisely. The phrase they use is, if the internet dies, the governance still works.
And this resilience is fundamental to their structure, which is organized as a fractal arc topology.
That sounds like a hierarchical structure designed to scale identity and data.
It is. Information custody scales fractally from the smallest unit to the largest. L0 is the home cell. That's your individual sovereign node.
Okay.
L1 is the neighbor mesh. L2, the bioregion guild. And L3 is the planetary commons.
And identity and access are managed through these cutting-edge self-sovereign identity standards, decentralized identifiers, DIDs, and verifiable credentials, VCs.
Right. So my HDT data, which is L0, is mine. But the bioregion guild, L2, could govern anonymized access to collective data, but only if the request comes with the proper VCs and a formal custodial license.
It's all about permissioned access.
Now let's talk about governing this resilient data architecture within the confines of the existing legal system. They use a specialized AI for compliance, the Legal AG AI.
The Legal RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation AI, isn't designed to replace lawyers. It's designed to enforce hyper-compliance.
And it's specialized to understand the Australian statutory corpus, so the entire body of laws.
Yes, using sophisticated methods like structural hierarchical chunking, which means it understands the laws not just as text, but by their organizational structure, part, section, clause.
And the driving mandate for this AI is the over-compliance mandate, which they charmingly call the Kintsugi Protocol.
Which suggests they're trying to fix the flaws in the system by exceeding expectations.
The Kintsugi metaphor is brilliant. It refers to the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold, treating the repair as an enhancement.
And the AI operates by identifying the strictest regulation across federal, state, and local jurisdictions, and then generating protocols that not only meet those standards, but intentionally exceed them.
So it transforms compliance from a bureaucratic drag into a trust-building mechanism.
Coding with gold, basically, to ensure social license and legal integrity.
But the core power of this entire data layer rests on the truth engine, which they propose as the supreme governance tool. It's meant to replace, I reckon, with first principles ground truth.
The truth engine is modeled as a mixture of experts, AI swarm, a highly diverse set of specialized models all working together. Its stated purpose is to run high-fidelity simulations for every single policy proposal that a governing body puts forth.
Let's use their primary example again. A local council proposes a 50,000-person festival on the island. The proposal goes to the truth engine. What happens?
The engine ingests the proposal parameters. It cross-references it with the real-time data from the global sensorium local capacity, current weather, infrastructure status, historical stress points, and then it runs hundreds of dynamic simulations based on physics and ecological reality.
And the output.
The output is a verifiable no if the simulation predicts an infrastructural collapse, like sewage failure is imminent.
I have to pause here. This is the ultimate utopian claim, isn't it? An AI that can just veto political decisions.
It's a huge claim.
What prevents the verifiable no from just becoming a new, highly effective form of centralized control? Maybe one program with biases we don't even recognize. Who governs the input variables of the simulation?
That is the essential question. The documents counter this by emphasizing the open source nature of the sensorium data. The ground truth has to be verifiable by anyone, and the reliance on first principles ground truth.
Meaning the simulation is ideally coded to align with non-negotiable physical laws.
Right. Carrying capacity, fluid dynamics, energy conservation. However, the creation of that initial algorithm, the expert that defines sewage capacity limits, that is still a human choice. And that remains the system's Achilles heel if it's not governed transparently by the community deities.
It certainly removes the emotional or the politically motivated argument from the equation. It forces governance to align with measurable reality.
It's a system designed to be hyper-competent and resistant to political compromise.
Okay, so we have the individual, the digital twin, and we have the governance structure, the truth engine. But the economic layer is what underpins it all. And this system makes a really profound diagnosis of why existing civilization stacks fail.
They argue it's because they rely on an incomplete ledger.
An incomplete ledger. What does that mean?
The creators argue that our traditional economic frameworks, the ones centered around metrics like GDP, they structurally ignore and undervalue the foundational work that's required to maintain any healthy society.
You're talking about things like caregiving, maintaining social cohesion, community governance.
Ecological stewardship. All of it. It's treated as an externality, or worse, something that has to be subsidized by public spending after the fact.
And the resulting structural failure, according to the sources, is that the expenses required to maintain societal well-being will always outpace the revenue generated by the formal market economy.
Exactly. The formal market, based on capital exchange, only measures monetized transactions. It leaves this massive uncompensated hole in the ledger.
And we can quantify the scale of this invisible economy by looking at global time use surveys.
And the numbers are incredibly stark. They really are.
Let's pull out some of that data, starting with Australia and the US, just to show the scope of this work.
In Australia, survey participants spend, on average, close to 4 hours a day, 3 hours and 55 minutes on unpaid activities.
Mostly domestic work, childcare, volunteering.
Right. In the United States, the pattern holds. 80% of the population engages in household activities, averaging around 2 hours daily. And we see similar massive parallel economies in the UK, China, Brazil, India. This is not a rounding error.
No, it's the structural foundation upon which the entire visible economy actually rests.
That's their argument. And if the failure to measure this work is an economic problem, the concentration of that uncompensated labor is a critical social justice problem. Specifically, a profound gender disparity.
This seems to be the moral impetus for their economic solution.
It is. The data is consistent globally.
Yeah.
Women bear a disproportionate burden of this invisible labor. In India, the gender disparity ratio for total unpaid time is calculated at 2.6 times higher for women than for men.
And even in developed nations like the UK.
Even there, women spend roughly 26 hours per week on unpaid work compared to 16 hours for men. That's a 1.63 times ratio.
So the civilization stack explicitly views the current global economic system as being structurally subsidized by the uncompensated labor of women.
It does, and therefore the economic fix must be a direct, measurable response to that inequality.
Which brings us to their proposed solution, braided economics. This is a deliberate dual currency structure that weaves the market-based financial economy.
So conventional fiat currency for innovation and infrastructure.
With a parallel, incentivized reciprocity economy.
And the crucial pivot point for that reciprocity economy is the creation of a new unit of value, the community hour, or C hour.
The C hour is the non-speculative linchpin.
It is. It's defined as a digital receipt representing 1 hour of verified socio-ecological contribution.
Verified, for example, through the decentralized ledger and the human digital twin data showing actual caregiving or verified ecological restoration work.
And the documents stress a principle of radical equality here.
That's the anti-arbitrary market rule.
Right. 1 sea-hour is always equal to 1 hour of verified contribution. It doesn't matter if that hour was spent doing software development or elder care, the value unit is fixed.
Which directly counteracts the market's tendency to arbitrarily assign massive valuations to certain types of labor, like finance, while virtually ignoring others, like caregiving.
It's a fundamental tool for economic justice.
But this introduces a new asset class. And that brings us right back to the legal system. To implement the C-hour at scale, they need a legislative keystone. They can't let it be regulated like Bitcoin.
Precisely. The C-hour, as a non-speculative digital receipt, faces regulatory uncertainty in every major Western jurisdiction. It has to be legally separated from financial products and speculative cryptocurrencies.
So the strategy in Australia is a formal legislative amendment to the Corporations Act 2001 and the Draft Digital Asset Platforms Bill 2025.
And they're seeking a legal carve-out to create a distinct category called regenerative assets.
What's the core legal argument for that separation?
The argument is based on intent and acquisition. A regenerative asset, like the C-hour, is defined as being earned via verifiable contribution, not purchased with an expectation of profit.
If you can't purchase it with fiat currency, hoping it will appreciate,
then it cannot be defined as a speculative financial product. This legal separation de-risks the entire concept for policymakers and investors. It separates it from the crypto Wild West narrative.
And the strategy then scales globally. They target the U.S. legislative environment to establish best practice. They leverage U.S. precedents to make the Australian proposal look less radical.
The global framing is extremely sophisticated. They explicitly cite the Wyoming DAO LLC legislation from 2021.
So by referencing a U.S. state that already legally recognizes decentralized autonomous organizations,
a critical component of the sovereignty stack,
they can argue to Australian regulators that this governance model is already a recognized G7 precedent.
It reframes the radical proposal as merely adopting successful existing Western legal structures.
And the political engagement pathway for specific U.S. senators shows a deep understanding of tailored persuasion. Let's look at how they target the political right first, using the Clarity Act.
For senators focused on innovation and reducing regulatory friction, like Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming and Tim Scott from South Carolina, the C-hour is framed as a strategic, economic, and conservation tool.
The appeal is that it offers a 21st century solution for community engagement and ecological resilience.
For Scott, the argument connects directly to opportunity zones. OZs rely on external capital, but the C-hour generates value from within the community by compensating overlooked labor. It creates a complementary, more holistic model.
That makes strategic sense.
Yeah.
But the real test is their approach to the crypto skeptics, particularly someone like Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Her focus is typically consumer protection, financial stability, anti-money laundering.
Right.
The strategy here is masterful because it turns skepticism into alignment. They frame the C-hour amendment as the antidote to crypto's sins.
Oh, so.
They argue that by creating a distinct, legally protected category for non-speculative, pro-social digital assets, the amendment actually fixes the proposed Clarity Act. It provides a regulatory framework that prevents ethical projects from being lumped in with the predatory financial instruments Warren opposes.
And they take it one step further. They target her connection to policy think tanks.
Yes. They reference her daughter's association with Demos, a progressive think tank, and they position the C-hour as an explicit tool for economic justice.
So the C-hour is presented not as a dangerous digital asset, but as the legislative mechanism needed to formally measure and compensate the care economy.
Which directly addresses measured gender inequality. It's an appeal that aligns with her fundamental progressive principles, effectively bypassing her typical skepticism towards digital assets.
That strategy is brilliant. They're not trying to change her mind about crypto. They're offering her a legislative path to achieve her existing policy goals through their system.
They're using the problem of the incomplete ledger to drive political acceptance of their solution.
We've built the individual, the decentralized governance, and the new economy. Now we face the impossible question. How do you implement a total civilization stack reset without the existing political establishment just crushing it?
And the answer is their political wing, P4 Australia.
The People's Purple Protopian Party of Australia.
P4 Australia, yes. It's the vehicle for what they openly call the satirical Trojan horse. Their philosophy is grounded in purple synthesis, the idea of transcending the traditional limiting red versus blue political divide.
But the engagement method is the true stroke of genius. The satirical bait and switch.
The bait is designed for instant disarming relatability and humor. They use the grounded, familiar Kenny Castle archetype, the salt-of-the-earth Australian concerned with simple, everyday problems, making fun of the system.
And their primary symbol is the ridiculous yet instantly memorable purple anti-splash urinal mat.
Right. This high-fidelity satire is deployed to neutralize cynicism and secure public engagement, where a serious political white paper would fail instantly.
So the public comes for the joke, but the switch is the pivot to the reality of what they call the meta-crisis.
The switch is to the terrifyingly sincere bureaucracy required to implement the civilization stack. The party's core stewards are described as hyper-competent technocrats who genuinely believe the full implementation of the truth engine, the braided economy, the sovereignty stack,
They believe it's the only functional way to avert the global meta-crisis.
including those high-stakes existential threats like the solar micronova theory. The joke is the means of entry, allowing them to deploy these highly complex, high-concept solutions once they're inside the gates of influence.
And the physical anchor for this entire operational system is the Minjariba pilot.
Minjerba, North Stradbroke Island, is the foundational location. It's established in partnership with the Quandamuka Yuluburabi Aboriginal Corporation, or QYAC.
And the island is strategically crucial because of its geology. It's the world's second largest sand island, which means it's essentially a pre-processed ore body.
This connects right back to the materials used in the Aura capsule, but now on a massive infrastructural scale through the silica stack framework.
So this framework reconceptualizes the island's high-purity quartz sand, 99% silica, as the foundational substrate for a Type 1 civilization.
It moves the local economy from extractive export to intergenerational resilience. That high-purity sand provides the feedstock for everything.
Structural ceramics.
Right. Osteomorphic blocks for construction, photovoltaics for solar energy, and crucially strategic heavy minerals like rutile, zircon, and monazite.
Which are essential for sovereign computing infrastructure and advanced construction.
Exactly.
The ultimate goal is constructing a subterranean, resilient city, which necessitates some revolutionary engineering methods tailored to that sand island's hydrogeology.
That requires the use of the sandworm wet sand tunnel boring machine and the strategic innovation of lateral wall mining.
Okay, traditional TBMs struggle in wet, loose sands.
They do. The sandworm is specialized to stabilize this material as it moves, but lateral wall mining is the economic key.
Explain that. How do they turn excavation into a profit center?
Normally, digging a tunnel is a pure cost center. Lateral wall mining is designed to monetize the material being removed,
So the machine excavates the sand.
which is immediately processed in situ to recover those valuable heavy minerals, rutile, zircon, monazite. The valuable material is separated, and the resulting void becomes the habitable volume for the underground city.
When the tunnel linings.
They're manufactured by sintering the excavated silica into fused quartz ceramic right on the spot, completely eliminating external concrete supply chains.
That is the epitome of joyful, responsible abundance. You're solving an infrastructure problem, generating revenue, and securing material sovereignty all in one process.
It's the highest expression of systems thinking in the entire source material. But the scope of the project extends beyond engineering, embracing a truly radical geopolitical posture, exopolitics.
This is where we introduce the Abyss Protocol. This accounts for cryptoterrestrial risk, defining unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs, as manifestations of a suboceanic technet, or SOT.
Yes. The existence of an advanced, non-human, indigenous underwater civilization is not treated as a theoretical possibility, but as a strategic design constraint baked into the entire plan.
And Minjariba, sitting at the edge of the continental shelf, is designated the primary littoral interface with this silent stakeholder.
So the engineering has to account for this SOT. Does this explain the push for subterranean infrastructure?
Absolutely. It forces immediate design changes. The sandworm TBMs have to implement acoustic stealth, silent running protocols to avoid detection or disturbance.
And the subterranean tunnel linings must use acoustic metamaterials designed to cloak the city from any potential sonar surveillance.
So they're building a Type 1 civilization prototype that is actively hiding its physical presence from its deep-sea neighbors.
It is. And this incredible strategic acknowledgement leads to the ultimate act of xenodiplomacy.
The protocol establishes a ceremonial empty chair policy in all governing councils of the civilization stack, formally representing the SOT.
And diplomacy with the SOT is mediated entirely through indigenous sovereignty.
The Quandamuca people, with their 65,000 years of unbroken tenure and deep knowledge of the land-sea interface, are formally positioned as the only legitimate diplomatic peers to the sub-oceanic technate.
It's a huge moral and political move. It reframes the most speculative geopolitical challenge contact with an unknown civilization through a lens of ancient indigenous rights and stewardship.
And the economic connection completes the loop. They use the braided economy as the proposed trade protocol.
Right, so rather than offering fiat currency or conventional human technology, which would likely be useless or redundant to an SOT, they offer regenerative assets.
Regenerative assets, meaning verified socio-ecological restoration measured in sea hours.
Exactly. They offer planetary home maintenance, ocean cleanup, ecological restoration, carbon sequestration in exchange for advanced technical knowledge from the SOT. It's a radical proposition that reframes the relationship from potential interspecies conflict to neighbors collaborating on home maintenance.
And it aligns the economic goal of the Sea Hour with the ultimate geopolitical ambition of peaceful coexistence.
So looking back across these four layers, what we've really analyzed is a holistic, unified theory of civilizational change.
It is.
This project is trying to redefine everything we take for granted, from the core definition of the self via the digital twin to the concept of value through the Sea Hour,
To the integrity of governance via the Truth Engine and CRDTs.
and even our place in the cosmos through the Abyss Protocol. It's an immense, detailed, and completely interconnected system.
And the strategy for implementation is just as critical as the architecture itself. They reject the slow march of linear political planning in favor of fractal, agile, decentralized momentum building.
It starts small, with what they call seed artifacts.
Like the short film about the purple urinal mat, produced via a high-speed, 3-day production plan.
And it's all designed for sudden life gaming. The goal is to seed these attractors, these memorable, viral concepts that self-organize and scale into functioning infrastructure faster than traditional institutions can comprehend, react to, or stop.
That leveraging of high-fidelity satire, the satirical bait and switch, is the core tactical innovation here.
It is. It acknowledges that in a world suffering from information overload and extreme cynicism, sincerity is often ignored, but absurdity is memorable and highly transmissible.
The joke is not the end product.
No. It's the highly effective, low-friction invitation engine for securing alignment and participation. The absurdity opens the door for the terrifying sincerity of the hyper-competent bureaucracy that's right behind it.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, the learner. If the ultimate defense against civilizational collapse is the rapid creation of a regenerative, trust-based Type 1 civilization prototype, a system that values care and ecological health above profit, can a movement that relies equally on high-fidelity satire, an ancient court sand base, and hyper-confident, sincere bureaucracy succeed faster than traditional politics and inertia can stop it?
In other words, does the joke eventually become the infrastructure?